Welcome into the Where You're Going podcast. I'm your host, John Little, and it's not about where you've been. It's not about where you are right now. It is about where you're going and who you are becoming. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. And we've got a guy that knows all too well that it's about where you're going and who you're becoming. Jason Queen is on the show today. We'll hear from him in just a moment. Our last interview show with Grant McCaslin, episode number 4, just some incredible wisdom brought out by Coach McCaslin. And I can't thank him enough for coming on the show. It made an incredible impact. And if you are liking what's happening in the show, make sure to rate and review the show. Most importantly, I think, subscribe. YouTube, on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast to make sure that you get the latest show as well. There's also an opportunity on our website, whereyou'regoingpod.com. Sign up with your email address and we'll drop you a note every single time that we put out a podcast. And so it's time to meet Jason Queen. Talk about a guy who was down and out. A lot of it because of his own doing. Labeled. A lot of people thought he would never amount to anything, but now here he is, and he is making a true difference in not only the community around him, but stepping outside of his comfort zone. I don't want to say that. I think he's always been a guy that had a grander vision, but definitely stepping outside of the comfortable to go for it and to absolutely expand his vision of what the impact of his life and his story can be. And he is going after that right now. Plus, he's doing it at home with his wife, Jada, and their 6 kids. They're making a tremendous impact in their community in Texas as well. I am proud to call Jason Queen a friend. Please enjoy this interview with my friend, Jason Queen. And we're joined by motivational speaker, Jason Queen. Jason, thank you so much for the time, man. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Super excited to be here with you. I love what you're doing. I think this Where You're Going podcast is incredible because so many are asking that question, whether they realize it or not. Like, what am I doing? Where am I going? And I think these real conversations are just super helpful for people.
Well, I really appreciate that. And I agree with you 100%. I really think that people are asking that question these days. They are feeling just like they don't have guidance, that they don't know where they're headed in life. And a lot of times that starts when we're really young. And for you, for those that aren't familiar with you, you are a motivational speaker. You do it a lot for organizations that are educational, but you do it a lot for students as well. And you've done that for about 2 decades now. What makes you passionate about reaching either those kids that are being educated or the educators themselves?
That's a great question, man. I'll never forget, John, the day that my parents walked out the doors of that facility, got in their car and drove off, leaving me halfway across the country in the only program for at-risk youth that would even take me in. I mean, as a teenager, just feeling completely lost, completely broken. Talk about lonely. Like, I had no friends, no family, and honestly, what felt like no future. And if you've ever felt stuck before, man, I was hopelessly stuck. Like, I just felt like life was a game and I lost. And, obviously there's a lot that led up to that moment, and, most of which was my poor decision making. But, coming up in a family that my parents just didn't know how to be parents, man. They were kids when they had us. And my dad's dad passed away when he was 8. My mom's dad would come home drunk and angry and beat on her mom. And, she would walk in and experience this herself. And, just all kinds of just trauma. And, 2 broken pieces coming together don't make a whole piece. They just make 2 broken pieces. And, they did the best they could with what they had and with what they knew. But we were raised with a lot of dysfunction. My parents loved me, no doubt about that. But, there's just a lot of trauma in the home, lots of fighting, lots of crazy. And, I just started looking up to my cousins for guidance. As you were saying, a lot of people want to know, where do I turn? Who do I look up to? And I felt the same way as a student. And, they took me and they accepted me. They believed in me. They accepted me for who I was, and I didn't feel judged by them. And, unfortunately though, they, were in gangs, and they introduced me to a lot of things that, I probably shouldn't have been a part of, right? Like a lot of concepts and ideas. And, I was just passionately lost, John. So give me anything and I'll just run 100 miles an hour with it. And so went from, smoking to then drugs to hard liquor to all of it together to selling, hustling, fighting in school, weapons on campus, just lots of dark, lonely things, places I should have never been. So by ninth grade, man, I was kicked out of school a ton, labeled oppositionally defiant disorder, placed in foster care by the state and removed from my home for threatening to harm them, just going nowhere super fast. And I just felt like, I was always paranoid, looking over my shoulder, running from police, running from people who wanted to hurt me. And I don't know, man, I just started to feel like labels people were giving me, when they would say that I was hopeless or that I wasn't going to amount to anything or that I was just another statistic. I started to believe those things, and your beliefs are powerful because your beliefs 1,000% of the time determine your behavior. So, man, I was living that life because I believed all that, and it's tragic. But there I found myself halfway across the country and with nothing. And I don't know, I didn't have a come to Jesus moment yet. I was just more emboldened, more angry. I felt abandoned. I felt a lot of things. And it took all of my hopelessness and it just brought it to like a whole different place of darkness. And I just gave up, didn't care. And so if you're listening to this and you feel hopeless or you're in a dark place, man, there's hope for you. I just want to say that, or if you know somebody who seems like they just don't care, they're rebelling against all authority, they're in your face, they're belligerent, they're just wild, man, there's hope for them. And I want you to hear that today. And the thing that really, really changed things for me, John, was that there was a teacher who stepped in my life. And, when he noticed me, he didn't notice me for like all my behavior problems. I was used to that. He noticed me for other reasons. And I don't know what it was, but he saw something in me. And when what felt like the whole world had given up on me, this man believed in me. And honestly, when I gave up on me, this man believed in me. And when I did good, he was there. When I did terrible, he was there. When I was listening, great. When I was cussing him out, he was there. And it was his consistency, his unconditional love, and all of those things. And man, one day he said, "Jason, you're just a few choices away from a very different life." And he started teaching me how to change my life. And the first choice really was he introduced me to a relationship with Jesus. And I say this because it wasn't religion, it wasn't church, it wasn't institutionalized anything. What it was somebody who embodied the heart of Jesus, who had compassion on me, somebody who was hopelessly lost and broken, and consistently loved me with no strings attached. And it opened my heart to even the idea that maybe Jesus is worth following. Like it positioned me, it prepared me for when I would truly hear the gospel and understand it for the first time. And yeah, man, he taught me how to change my life and gave me a Bible and all that. And I read it every day. And, he said, man, if you just change your focus, if you change some relationships, change some of your direction, you can have a very different life. And basically one next step at a time. That's exactly what I did, John. I went from being, completely hopeless to being what I felt like was unstoppable, man. I feel like I went from this really dark, lonely place to a place where I feel like I could do anything, and optimism was my new anthem. And my life just started to drastically change. Jesus changed me from the inside out. I submitted and I started making lots of changes in my own heart and mind. And man, that guy became my first mentor. I started seeing the value in teachers, coaches, and mentors. And yeah, I went on to graduate with, pretty high GPA. And then I went on to share my story with thousands of students just like me all over North America at schools, churches, camps, conferences, you name it. And God was like, yeah, bro, I'm pulling you out of this slimy pit that you're in to be a voice of hope for the next generation. And so I've dedicated my life to it.
Oh, I just absolutely love that. And there are two things that I really want to pull out of your story. One is that you were passionately lost. You know, that you had a bunch of passion, to go somewhere, but you just did not know how to harness it. You did not know where to put it. And now look at you now as you start to take that passion and you're putting it in the right direction. You're right. You are absolutely unstoppable. But sometimes those most difficult people in our lives, or like you said, that kid that just seems so incredibly lost, if that light gets turned on, man, if that light gets turned on, it can be unstoppable in the exact opposite direction, the positive direction.
No, that's exactly right. And, that's why I get so frustrated when I see people put labels on those students. Because when I
Mm.
see those students, I see rising stars. When I see
Mm.
those students, I see hope. And I know that in the moment, it doesn't feel like it. If you're a teacher listening to this and, you're struggling day in, day out with that student who's difficult, I know that day in, day out can feel difficult. It can wear on you. It can be tiring. But I just want to tell you that you may be the one safe, consistent place in that student's life that maybe, just maybe, will turn his life around, even if you don't get to see it right away. And man, the students who are completely out of control that way often have a huge calling on their life. And they
Yeah.
just need people who have enough of their own social, emotional learning they've done for themselves. They can manage their own emotions well enough to consistently engage and love that student unconditionally.
Wow. And you transitioned powerfully exactly where I wanted to go next, which was the fact that there was someone in your life that just did not give up on you. And I'm sure it was not the first time that a person tried to place some hope in your heart, but it was the first time that you were actually open to it. And it took some trial and error. It sounds like on this guy's part,
Yeah.
but we that have hope, we've got a responsibility to be hope for others. That's what he was for you. And that's how you encourage the people that you talk to make a difference, whether it be in their classrooms or anywhere in life.
Yeah. And there's this verse in the Bible that says that some sow, some water, but God gives the increase. It's this idea
Mm.
that as somebody who has hope, you do have a responsibility to plant that seed in people's lives. And if you are fortunate enough to consistently be able to interact with those people that you would deem as difficult, then man, you get to plant and water that seed over and over again. And eventually that seed is going to bring forth fruit. It just is. If you plant apple seeds in the ground, eventually you're going to get an apple tree.
That's right.
And when you look at a difficult student, what I don't want you to see is the apple, and I don't want you to look through the apple and even see the seeds. I want you to look beyond the seeds and see the forest of apple trees that one apple represents, because my life has turned around in such a powerful way because of God intervening and because of choices I've made along the way. My life has changed in such a powerful way that I have been privileged to travel and speak to thousands of students all over the North American continent, impacting like a domino effect many people's lives. And I'm not saying that to brag on myself. I'm saying that to say, if that man gave up at any point along the way, this may not be my story. If he gave up, it may not be my story. That person who's difficult in your life right now, man, you might be the one person that doesn't give up on them. And I need you to be encouraged as you listen to this, that you're in their life for a reason. You matter. Even if they disrespect you like crazy, they seem like they don't listen or don't care. I'm telling you, you matter. And God's placed you in their life for a reason, to be that salt, to be that light, to be hope for them.
I just absolutely love that, because there's no way that he could see, at that point, the impact that you would make. But he still believed in you. And now You're like, all right, I'm going to do even greater things than this guy did. I'm going to tell people not only to look for the apple, I'm going to tell people to look for the forest. That is just unbelievable. But when did you start to become, just kind of the farmer of that forest, if you will? How did you go from, all right, I'm labeled oppositional defiant to yeah, I'm doing pretty well for myself and I'm starting to turn my life around. But how did it go from turning Jason's life around to trying to turn the world around?
It's a great question, man. When I first started to turn my life around, I found this thing called optimism, and that, like I said, became the anthem of my life. And I just started to passionately chase after that, as I passionately chased after Jesus and just this new life, that I discovered that there were new possibilities for me. It was like when somebody lifted the lid for me and showed me that I could climb out of that can that I was living in, that there was
Mm.
so much more available, that I experienced it to be true. And then I realized that lids are only there if we allow them to be there. Then I started to
Mm.
discover this endless adventure that could be possible. And so somebody invited me to share my story at this little tiny, I don't even know what kind of church it was, some little tiny church that you see in like a country movie or something. I don't know. And I didn't know how to share my story. I wasn't, that wasn't my thing. And they were like, we just want you to share. So I did. And afterwards, people were just like, bro, that's powerful. And you
Mm.
need to do this a lot more. And so then people started inviting me. It was just one after the other. I started getting invited to share here and then share there. And people gave me more opportunities. And I remember one time I was in Canada, this small town, and I shared my story, and I didn't know how to share the gospel yet.
Mm.
So I read a track. I literally had everybody close their eyes, and I pulled a paper track out that I found on a table there, and I just read it. Didn't know what I was doing. Palm sweaty, scared to death, just like, all right. And I read the track all the way through the prayer. And the mayor was there, and he gave his life to Jesus that night.
Oh my
This
gosh.
this couple that was going to get divorced was there, and they said that they're going to fight for their marriage. Two heroin
Oh,
addicts
come
were
on.
there who said that they wanted to follow Jesus. Like, just so many people came up afterwards, and in that moment, the Holy Spirit was like, "Jason, I've saved you to be a voice for the next generation. I'm calling you. This is what your life is meant for. I need you to understand it." Because up to that point, like, I wasn't getting it. I just thought these were cool experiences. I didn't understand that there was a bigger calling on my life. And that was the turning point for me. And then it was like, okay, well, now I actually understand this. I'm going to make all of my life decisions based around this.
Wow.
And that cleared a path for me to do some pretty incredible things.
Absolutely. And that includes full-time ministry along the way as well. And that is how I first got to know you. I'm sure I'm skipping a lot of steps in there, and I don't want to skip forward too far, but full-time ministry is awesome. And I know it blessed you in a lot of ways over the last handful of years as you did that specifically at Valley Creek in the Dallas area. But there came a time I know at the end of your time there in full time ministry where you had impacted a lot of students' lives through that role, and that's what God called you to at that time. But you were starting to grow out of that role, and I'm sure that's very, very uncomfortable for somebody when they feel like I have found my thing and I've found my calling, and maybe it's full time ministry forever. And then things just started to evolve a little bit. What's the last year or so been like for you?
Yeah, all the way through COVID, John, I got to sit on the central student director role, meaning that over all of our campuses, I get to speak into vision, strategy, teaching, content, all of that for our students, student leaders, parents, families, as well as be on the teaching team for the church for our weekend experiences for everybody. And it was great. It was a great honor, great privilege to be a part of that. and we got to pioneer some really cool things, build some really great student ministry, and see a lot of students really truly become disciples and follow Jesus, not just show up for a weekly hype event, but truly learning to follow Jesus, and being in these small circles where they're journaling and praying and memorizing verses and talking about life change and serving and leading. It's truly amazing, and it's just an honor to be a part of that. But this last year, God was like, hey, I want you to have childlike faith. There's some new adventures. There's everything to discover still for you. And I heard that in January of the last year, 2022. And that whole year, God would say things like that to me. And by the fall, when we got to the fall, we did a series for our church called It's Time. And Pastor John, who's the lead pastor for Valley Creek, comes out and says, it's time. And I don't know what it's time for, but it's time for whatever glorifies God and is good for others that he's telling you to do. And it was like a megaphone in my ear. And my wife and I just looked at each other, and we just started having more serious discussion about, like, because we knew, like, this was awesome and we loved it, but there are thousands and thousands of students who will never walk through the doors of a church. There are hundreds and hundreds of people who are lost, lonely, and broken who will never step through Valley Creek church doors. And, I'm wired to be evangelistic by nature. And, like, I want to go where they are. I want to be with them. I want to speak hope and life over them. And, God was birthing that in me. And, I started talking with the staff team about it, and we started praying about it and talking back and forth together. And it just became super clear and super obvious there wasn't a way to do both. And it was like a fork in the road where I had to choose, like, am I going to chase after the dreams that God has placed inside of me? Or am I going to stay safe in this comfortable little place where everything can be on autopilot for me? And it's something that we say at Valley Creek all the time, is that, ships are safe at harbor, but they're never meant to stay there. We're meant to go out into the ocean. We're meant to go out and to sail, right? Like, we as people are meant to go out into the world and carry hope and bring life everywhere we go. So, we ended our role on staff at the end of the year and started to pursue this full time, man, just speaking in schools and traveling and speaking life over students and educators and different events in different places. And there's a whole lot of other things. And we are just still only in the beginning of all of this, man, as we roll out the Elevate Your Life community and all the other pieces of that we're putting together. And I'm at a place, John, where I am so excited. I mean, your destiny lives on the other side of yes with God, and that's often always on the other side of fear as well. And when you say yes and you cross over, there's going to be difficulty, there's going to be adversity, and the amount and the weight of adversity and friction is often a mirror reflection of the impact that's on the other side. And if you can just hang on and just keep taking one next step at a time, just keep saying yes, just keep moving forward, just have enough faith and courage for one more day and keep moving, you're going to see exponential impact. And it's going to all be worth it. So, yeah, I'm just excited, man. God is good. Life is good. And if you're listening to this and you feel like you have a calling on your life and it's kind of a fork in the road, it would mean saying no to some comfort. I know that that's hard. I know it. And I know it firsthand. And I know that there's difficulty and it's not a light switch. It's a journey. But I'm telling you, if that's inside of you, you will suffer suffocating that, because it's going to want to grow and come to life. And if you don't give it life, you won't live the life you were created to live. You'll live an okay life, maybe a good one even, but not the one you were meant to live. Come on, there's so much more for you.
And transition is never easy. And, you walk out there and it's not like most of the time that God, or, if you just believe that honestly your own God and you're kind of seeing a vision for yourself, whatever the case may be, it's not often that vision is completely clear for you as you step out of that and into the unknown. That's why they call it the unknown, right? So what do you focus your eyes on when, honestly, Jason, you're just at the beginning of this and you don't know exactly where it's going to lead. So many of our listeners are in this same type of spot right now. Okay, you're telling me to take a step, but what if, what if, what if? So what do you focus on instead of all the what ifs?
Yeah. There's a never-ending supply of what ifs. There's a never-ending supply of doubt. There's a never-ending supply of fear. I just want you to think about your life. When you die, you don't want to be standing there saying, man, what if I would have done that?
Mm-hmm.
What if I would have taken the risk? What could it have been? Like, you get one life, man. You got one shot at this thing. Like, go for it. If there's something inside of you, go for it. If it's not clear, just go for what is clear. Take one step. If you don't have a full picture yet, take a step towards the picture you do have and start figuring out what that picture is. Like, if you're a Christian and you have a relationship with Jesus, you can pray, you can talk to God, you can look at your past, you can look at your history, look at how God has led you, look at his consistent faithfulness in your life, and you can see a pattern of what he may be calling you to do on a bigger scale. If you're not a Christian and you're listening to this, man, I will tell you, God's got a plan for your life, and it's so much better than anything you could put together on your own, I promise. But if you're trying to figure this out, some key things to think about are: what are your passions? What are your talents? What concerns you? What are the things that bother you in this world that you want to right? If you could turn it around, you would. Like, those are things that are indicative of the calling that's on your life. And the thing is, you got to start somewhere. Just start taking steps towards it, man. Just step, move. Some is better than none. We say it all the time in our community. Some is better than none. Movement. Take some kind of action. Even if it's imperfect, it's better than perfect inaction, right? So take some type of action. And the more action you take, often the more it brings more clarity to the next step. But if you just sit there waiting for perfection, you're never taking action. So then you just never move. And you're paralyzed in the land of what if. Come on, you can live your dreams. You can achieve them, I promise. It's not as complicated as people make it seem, but it requires a little bit of faith and courage, and it requires taking some action, and it's just an amazing, amazing journey.
Absolutely. We're visiting with Jason Queen, and I think about, the things that you're passionate about, that you want to see, and certainly I can see where that is driving, your day to day right now. But articulate those for me. Not just your passions, but the things that you would like to see change, the things in this life that you're like, no, that's not it, whether it be for, teachers or students or parents like you and I are. What are those things that are driving you right now?
Yeah, I think if I had to go all the way up the ladder at the very top, I just wish everybody had hope. It breaks my heart to see teen suicide. It breaks my heart to see, the brokenness in families. It breaks my heart to see the brokenness inside of our education system. It breaks my heart to see those things. And I just wish everybody could taste hope. There's a verse in the Bible that says, taste and see the Lord is good. And the more you experience his presence and experience hope, the more you have to keep going. And I just feel like so many people don't feel like they have that. And so they struggle to keep going. That's just my big picture. But, when it comes to specifics, man, I want to see every teacher passionate about truly connecting with their students. I know that teachers can change a student's life when they truly connect. And I know as a teacher, I got to get my curriculum taught. I got to get my reports in. I got to grade these papers. I got to do these things. I got to control behavior. I know those are real. I understand those day-to-day things. But at the end of the day, your job is so much bigger than that, because if you do all of those things well, but you never connect with your students and you never help them become a better human, then it doesn't matter what grade they have or how many reports get turned in or how great those reports are. Like, I want to see every school like elevate to their best possible outcome, man. I want to see students like really become rising stars in their campus and find hope for themselves and realize that I should get my education, but more than that, like, that's just a foundation for the so much more that's still to come. Like, I know this sounds cliche, I can be anything I want to be. I can live any life I want to live. And I think that so many struggle because they may not have had that modeled for them. They may not have that mentorship at home. They may not experience that in their day-to-day reality. And I just want to be a voice. I want to be another person modeling that for them, showing them the way, being somebody that's a support system in their life, being a mentor for them the same way that someone was for me. And then, we talk about the EYL community. For me, man, I get so hyped anytime somebody says, man, I have this thing that I want to do. I have this dream in
Mhm.
my heart. There's this thing I feel like I'm supposed to do with my life. And so I created this community because, man, I want to create a space where we grow together, where there's a space for people learning together and accomplishing together and sharing wins and learnings together and cultivating things together and like really getting there together. I want to help as many people as I can achieve their dreams. So the short version of this, John, I'm on a mission to reach 1 million students, and I'm on a mission to help people achieve their dreams. That's what I'm here for. That's what this is about. And that's where I'm going.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. I absolutely love that. 1 million students, and you're not even worried like how I'm going to do that. It's just that's the vision that you've been given. So you're going to get out there and you're going to make it happen. I love that. Something I wanted to talk about with the EYL, which elevate your life. I'm a part of that community. I'm excited about it. You get a chance to hear Jason's heart on so many things, kind of pour into you and what you're going through in life. But the reason that I love it is that we need community like for every area of our life. I need community for my spiritual walk, for my walk with Christ. I can't do that alone. I need other people to come along beside me and say, well, I think it's a little bit more this way. Not that, not that you're totally wrong, but I just want to help you along, I want to push you along, or just encouragement. It's not always necessarily, correction. It can be encouragement as well. And we need that too for things like you're talking about, these projects in life, these visions we have for our life. Sometimes we just need somebody else to come alongside of us and say, I believe in you too,
Come on.
just as much as you believe in you.
Yeah, or even more. I mean, man,
Yeah.
I hope that people can step into our community and borrow our belief until they can get their own. Like
Come on.
literally that's the one thing that so many struggle with. They get ideas, they get dreams, they get these visions, but like they don't take action because they don't believe that they can. They don't believe that they're enough. They don't believe that it could be true for them. They don't believe. And man, I love being a mindset coach. I love speaking that stuff into people because I know the power of belief, man. It's huge. And when you can change your belief about something, you can change everything about something. And so, yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited about UIL because I think that there are so many people who have big dreams. They have these goals, they have these ambitions, but they don't know what to do with them, or they don't know who to do them with. And if you can build your inner circle correctly, everything else will fall into place. I always tell people your inner circle is your biggest hurdle. You land that, everything else falls into place. And I think that EYL is that. It's we talk about mindset and character and leadership and all of that, but really what's happening is your beliefs are changing, your relationships are changing, and so your decision making is changing and your execution's happening more frequently. And so if your beliefs are always shifting, your relationships are getting better, and you're getting clear on your decision making, your execution's easier and more frequent, you start moving faster and faster and faster in the right direction towards the things that you want to accomplish with your life. And we all need that. I mean, that's just truth, man. We all need that in our life.
No doubt about it. And I hear you talk about beliefs. And I feel like that the biggest change in belief is just belief about yourself, like what you can accomplish, what you're capable of. It's a buzzword a little bit, but limiting beliefs. But maybe it's a buzzword because it's actually true that we put, like you said, this lid on our capability, a lid that we can easily move if we just say, no, I don't believe that about myself anymore. I'm not going to believe that. But that seems like the first belief that we've got to change is the belief in ourselves.
Yeah, and there's so many layers to that. Like to say
Mm-hmm.
that in simplicity is hard because there just are so many layers to that. My belief about myself and God, my belief about myself and my family, the belief that I have about myself and my marriage, the belief I have about myself and this dream that I have, the belief that I have about myself and how I was raised. Like there's just layers to those things. And so our whole life we've picked up experiences, things people have said and done to us, things we've said to ourselves. And
Yeah.
that has created this filter through which we live and experience life. And as Christians, a lot of times we're like, yeah, God's amazing. God can do anything. And we celebrate God for being awesome, but then we're not willing to see ourselves the way God sees us. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
God is awesome, but he created you awesome. Like, how are you going to champion his awesomeness without recognizing that he created you to be awesome? Like, you're living in a shell of what you could be. You're living in such a shallow version of what could be if you'll just take the lid off and just take a risk and just start moving and believing different, man.
Yeah. So many versions of religion are God is awesome, I suck.
Yeah.
And I think that I really bought into that for a long time in my life. I feel like I can say that because I've really, really lived it, Jason. But the truth is, Jesus is awesome. Okay. And I've got relationship with Jesus. In fact, when God sees me, he sees Jesus, that I'm one with him. I mean, how mind blowing is that? So God
Right.
looks at me and he says, John's awesome and Jason's awesome. And all of our kids are awesome. And we have such a low belief about ourselves sometimes, though. Like you said, it's multi-layered, but where do you start with that? Somebody who has a low opinion of themselves.
Yeah. There's a few answers I'd give to that. I'll start out by saying you know yourself better than anyone, and that's why you struggle to believe better about yourself. You know your
Oh, that's
failures,
really good.
you know
Yeah,
your
that's really
mistakes,
good.
you know your
Mm-hmm.
shame, you know your guilt, you know the times you said you were going to do something and you didn't, you know your own inconsistency, you know all of those things better than anyone. So anytime you want to move forward, those voices are really, really loud in your head. The key is to get the opposite voice be louder. And so there's a few ways to do that. The first one is if you're a Christian, it's like, man, what does Jesus say about who you are? I think that's super important. John, you touched on that. You know, as he is, so are we in this world. I think you dive into identity of how he sees you. I think you got to start surrounding yourself with people. Again, it's part of why EYL it matters. You know, surrounding yourself with people who will believe the best in you, call out the best in you, see you and celebrate you for who you can be, where you're going, not where you've been, not your past, not your labels, not your mistakes, not any of those things, but really believe about like where you're going and help believe that you can get there and cheer you on. So you need to hear it from God, you need to hear it from others. And then really the most important one, honestly, in my opinion, is the story you tell yourself. This is the one that takes the most work because nobody can do it for you. Nobody can do this one for you. You have to do it for yourself. The story you tell yourself is the most important story you will ever tell because it's the one that shapes and forms the way you see life the most. And when something happens, good or bad, you tell yourself something about it. If you don't make the team, what do you say? Man, I'm not good enough. I'll never make it. I'll never be like, right? It's a story you're telling yourself. Something happens in a relationship, it doesn't work out. What do you tell yourself? It's my fault and I'm not good enough. And man, if I could have just this, if I was just better, it's the story you're writing. You have to grab the pen, take control of your story, and start writing a better one. You got to start
Mm-hmm.
writing a higher version of your story. You know, we talk about limiting beliefs to your point, John, and we say that you have to come up with these things called elevation statements. Elevation statements are just the most extreme opposite positive version of your limiting belief. If you're like, man, I feel like I'm supposed to do this dream, but, and then you have this but statement and you say this negative thing about why you can't, that's your limiting belief, okay, about that
Mm-hmm.
particular thing. Next to that limiting belief, you really got to take time to just write what's the most extreme opposite positive version of that. And that's what I have to write down. And that's what I have to read over myself. And that's what I have to say to myself every day. And that's what I have to start to believe. And I have to believe it with intention, with positivity. And I need those people in my life saying it to me. And I read the Bible. I see God saying it about me. All of a sudden, I start rewiring all of my neural pathways. I start changing the way that I view life, the way that I see myself. I make different decisions. I get different outcomes. And all of a sudden, my life starts to elevate. It's not a light switch. It is a journey. But you got to start somewhere. And you got to be willing to do the work. Relationships matter because they hold you accountable to do the work, because you're going to show up and they're going to ask you how you're doing. And they're going to remind you of who you are. And it's going to pull you up when you need it. It's going to cheer you on when you're doing good. And it's going to keep you moving in the right direction.
That's why you need a community like EYL or some other kind of community, but you've got to get there. Absolutely. It's just another tool to help you get where you need to go, where you want to go. And that is so, so big. I want to speak to the educators a little more specifically here because you speak to a lot of educators out there. And I love hearing some of the things that you say to them because and you guys have been hearing just how influential, how inspirational, and how, just frankly motivating that Jason is. But, for teachers, I think they are just the backbone of our society. But sometimes, honestly, I hear some friends that are teachers that are a little bit cynical as well. And so that I know that can be damaging to our kids out there. So where do you start with our educators? What are you encouraging them to do right now?
I'm going to say something that may be a trigger, but I'm going to say it anyway. I feel like a lot of our educators are like police officers in the sense that they all start out with great ambition to make a real positive impact in their world. But over time, many of them get callous to what they experience and eventually become part of the problem unintentionally because they just get so wore down and so beat down in the day-to-day grind. Again, that's not everybody. I mean, I go to these schools, I'm telling you, I'm listening to teachers literally talk to me labeling their students right in front of me. They don't even realize they're doing it.
Yeah.
Like talking down about them right to me. They don't even realize they're doing it. It's become such casual conversation around their school with each other, shop talk, and they don't even realize that they are a part now, partially part of the problem in that system. And so I speak with educators because I know when they first started, that wasn't their heart. I know when
Yeah.
they first started, they joined because they said, man, I want to help students be their best. I want to help students dream. I want to help students be the next generation of leaders. I want to help students launch into this next. I know that. I know that's true of every educator. You wouldn't be in that business if it were not true. And so for me, I like to share my story with them because I think it reminds them of why they started. It reminds them that every difficult student has potential. It reminds them that what they get to do is probably one of the most important roles in society. It reminds them that they get to shape and form a generation, and that's a really big deal. And we talk a lot about different strategies and how to do that and what that looks like. But the high level version is just reconnecting their heart back to their why and in a fresh
Mm.
way, so that they can go back with some passion and really just, because we've all been there, man, in different ways. I mean, it's why we come to church on the weekend. It's not that we just stopped caring about God. It's that life happens, throws things at you, and sometimes just being immersed in that environment, in God's presence with other people, man, you get redirected and you get your heart and your mind back on what matters, and so you're able to go through another week and like do better. You know what I'm saying? Like be better and
Yeah.
be healthier and be more free. I get to do that on some level for educators, you know, and I don't know. I just really enjoy talking with them and spending time with them and really believing the best in them, man.
Absolutely. And you can book Jason to do that at officialjasonqueen.com. I mean, just some great resources there. You can see him in action as well. Definitely, if you were looking for something for your district that would make a difference, Jason can. And not that you won't be able to speak individually to a million students in your career. I'm believing that for you. But you think about it, you talk to the educators, and then then they're passing it down to their kids, hopefully,
Yeah.
and maybe by speaking to a group of 100 educators, then you're speaking to 10,000 students.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, man. It all matters. I really hope to see culture shift at schools, from the top down and really help them, because every administrator I talk to, man, they care. They care so much about their students. They care so much about their staff. I don't know that they have necessarily support they need even sometimes to really create that culture that they're looking for. And I know that they try to lean heavy on the teachers who get it. They run to those teachers, the handful who are like really passionate about students, to help kind of lead the way. But I just dream of a day when culture completely shifts at these schools, and teachers and students, and just all of it becomes incredible. And I don't say that if you're a teacher, you're listening and you're rolling your eyes right now. Like, I don't say that to say that your school's bad. That is not what I'm saying. So please don't mishear me. I know that the work that you guys do is awesome. It's incredible. It's needed. It's amazing. I just am saying the reality that I know it's hard, and I know the brokenness of it. And I know the reality that our students step in and out of every day, from home to school, from school to home. And man, I just want to be another voice of hope for you, for them, for our community, and for our country, really, man, just the next generation. So I believe in them, and I believe in you guys. If you're a teacher listening, thank you for what you do.
Absolutely. And it all started with one heart. I just want to remind you what we talked about right off the bat. Jason, misguided, in gangs, basically, drugs, alcohol, the whole bit, man. I mean, just as lost as a kid as you can imagine. And now here he is, already having made an impact in thousands and thousands of lives, and with a vision to do it even more. And that could be the kid in your classroom today. And for students, that could be the kid that's sitting next to you that's really, really tough to deal with. Maybe you can be a light in their life as well. And so this is motivating for me. It is inspirational for me, no doubt. And I love the impact you're making, Jason. I'm so proud of you.
Thanks, man. And thanks for having me on the show. And for all of you guys listening, thanks for taking time to hang out with us today. And look forward to connecting with you guys in the future.
Incredible stuff. Jason Queen, all about mindset, all about believing in people, even when they don't believe in themselves. He certainly didn't believe in himself when he was labeled oppositional, defiant, back when he was a teen. But somebody did, and they just kept pouring in and pouring in and pouring in one more time. And look where he is now. Look at the impact he's already made, and also the vision he has for his life. Just talking to him off the air, he is so excited right now for where he is headed, and just what God's doing in his life and through him, that he just can't wipe the smile off his face at this point. And that's where we all want to be. If you're not there right now, well, then it can get better. Don't stop trying to push forward. Don't stop trusting God for something better, and to do something better in your heart and help you along the way with your mindset and with the things that are going to help you step out of the bondage of whatever that you're facing on a day-to-day basis that you feel like is holding you back, and take you to a new space. That's what we're all about on this show. Jason Queen, the perfect guest. And make sure to subscribe to the show, because we've got more guests like this coming up week after week as we continue to find out what life can be all about if we leave all that past behind and say, where I'm going is so much better than where I've been. The Where You're Going podcast. We'll see you next week.